first in high definition from the station on your side. This is WAVY News 10.
All eyes on Hurricane Irene as it moves through the Caribbean.
If you got your plan and your supplies, you're good. If you don't, get ready.
Ted is on your side as the storm sets sight on Hampton roads and North Carolina's Outer Banks. We want to catch you up with the latest on Hurricane Irene.
At this hour, it's a Category 3, gaining strength with winds topping 120 miles an hour. Irene could reach a Category 4 status before making landfall. Mandatory evacuations are already in effect in Hyde County. Now, the Outer Banks will likely feel Irene's effects first.
10 on your side's Jason Marks is live there where people are already leaving.
We're going to start our team coverage with our chief meteorologist, Don Slater, in the Super Doppler 10 Weather Center with those 5 o'clock numbers. All important information, Don.
Yeah, it is over. It is right now over the southern Bahamas, southeastern Bahamas, and really hitting that area very, very hard. Let's have a look at Super Doppler 10 live. Show you, or to be Super Doppler 10 and also the computer, just to give you an idea of where this storm is and where everything is headed. Obviously, it's right on down into here, and we just now got the 5 p.m. update on everything, so we're just kind of throwing things together here in terms of what's going on with this storm. Not throwing things together, but really putting it together carefully to give you an idea. In the broader picture, we're going to take a much more localized picture as well. There's where it is Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 125-mile-an-hour winds off the coast of northern Florida. We move on up towards Saturday afternoon, about to make landfall as a weak Category 3, but nonetheless a Category 3 storm, and passing very, very close to the Outer Banks, to Cape Hatteras. After that, it drops off a bit, and by Sunday afternoon, it's off the Jersey shoreline, southern New Jersey, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 100-mile-an-hour winds, and then it heads on up into New England, and by Monday afternoon, it's still got 65-mile-an-hour winds. Now, a little closer view of things, show you what's going on with Irene, and again, you can see again, right on up to Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock, 125-mile-an-hour winds. We move on up to Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, 115-mile-an-hour winds as it approaches Cape Hatteras. Now, this is a little bit of good news for the Hampton Roads area, except for right along the coastline. I think along the coastline, as it passes by, there's where it is up off New Jersey by Sunday afternoon with 100-mile-an-hour winds. Along the coastline into the Hampton Roads area, we can see trouble out of this, and again, it moves on up into New England. Now, we're going to take it step by step. Here's where it is by Friday afternoon, nowhere near our area, but we move on into 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. It's approaching Cape Hatteras, moves right by Cape Hatteras, very, very much on the previous track, just offshore. Now, you will note that this cone is fairly wide. There's a great deal of uncertainty as to exactly where it's going to be. If it moves right on up through here, it could be an entirely different animal for the Hampton Roads area. That would put, let's say, the center of the storm right here. Worst part of the storm would be out to sea, but nonetheless, we'd see stronger winds. If it's about 30, 40 miles in that direction, we've got one storm. If it moves on off to the east like this, a little bit farther to the east, Outer Banks, you're looking better. Worst part of the storm way on out to sea, and the Hampton Roads area getting a north to northwesterly wind, which shouldn't pose a huge problem, and that would be more likely Saturday afternoon. And again, thereafter it moves on up into New England. So, Outer Banks preparedness. Be ready to evacuate when you are told to do so. Now, Outer Banks, you're jutting out into the open Atlantic, and obviously you're a much, much bigger threat right there. And of course, this hurricane is very likely to be very close to Hatteras. We'll see moderate to major tidal flooding, mainly on Saturday afternoon. We could see 100-plus mile-an-hour winds, certainly hurricane force winds, and tropical downpours for the Outer Banks. Now, for the Hampton Roads area, be thinking about it. Get that hurricane kit together, especially if you live near the shoreline. We'll likely see some minor to moderate tidal flooding, or in the low end of moderate tidal flooding on Saturday. Saturday afternoon around 2 o'clock, we'll likely see 35 to 55-mile-an-hour winds and tropical downpours into the area. Now, the time frame for this is likely to be Saturday early in the day for the Outer Banks, but Saturday Saturday afternoon and Saturday night for the Hampton Roads area. So again, Hampton Roads, we're not out of the woods totally, but it looks like we'll have a good strong brush with a strong hurricane. Outer Banks, you're going to get very, very close to the center of a strong hurricane. We'll tell you more coming up in just a few minutes.
Some people on the Outer Banks plan to ride out the storm. Others are leaving.
There is a mandatory evacuation for the tiny barrier island of Ocracoke. 10 on your side's Jason Marks has been on the Outer Banks since yesterday, continuing our live team coverage now from Hatteras, excuse me. Jason.
Yeah, Tom, people here on Hatteras Island, it's been business as usual for them, though they're keeping very close eyes on what Irene is going to do. Now, the busiest spot here in Hatteras Island might be the ferry landing dock, where boat after boat has arrived full of people coming back from from Ocracoke Island. The line of cars is constant, streaming off Ocracoke Island. The view from the deck only pales in comparison.
All the different people that we see.
From that and the captain's seat.
It's just an everyday grind right now.
But this is the last place anyone on this ferry wanted to be.
And we were actually out on a fishing boat yesterday, got back in, and they said, yeah, you're evacuating tomorrow.
The Tony family from Manassas, Virginia, spent their afternoon boarding for home.
Yeah, it was a real disappointment. We understand why they have to do it when they do it. And there's good reasons for it, but it was a real letdown. We had a lot of things we wanted to do while we were here.
Feeding the wildlife, an unplanned excursion.
Straight on home. We're going to try and do Ocracoke back at home.
Were you old enough to remember Isabel?
The same could be said for Suffolk's Mickalene Mills.
We came down for the week. We're very bummed because we had to pack up suddenly and go.
Officials ordered all visitors off the island this morning. Tomorrow, the evacuations will be mandatory for residents, too.
And we're just so sad. It was perfect here yesterday, perfect.
The perfect weather is slowly changing. Soon, the view from this boat won't be so nice.
We've been looking forward to this for 1 year, and it's the best house we've ever had. And now we have to leave.
But even though their vacations have been docked, their sense of humor hasn't.
We're sorry for ourselves. No, I'm just teasing.
Yeah, keeping that sense of humor the best way they can keep their sanity, having to cut their vacation short like they have. Now, we mentioned those evacuations for Ocracoke Island. They start tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. That's when it'll be mandatory for everyone. I can tell you, as we left this afternoon, it really has become a ghost town over there. A lot of people have taken the warnings and have left town. Other people are stopping by and staying and boarding things up. So as you can imagine, very busy over there, yet at the same time, a lot of people have left the island. That's the latest here. Now back to you guys.
All right. Thanks, Jason. The Federal Emergency Management Agency and the National Hurricane Center are closely watching Irene. The storm left major flooding across Puerto Rico. Evacuation orders are in place on North Carolina's Outer Banks because of the anticipated high winds and rough surf.
The effects of the hurricane in the form of tropical storm, maybe even hurricane force winds, rain, beach erosion, and tidal surge will be in play from the mid-Atlantic all the way up through New England as the storm progresses.
He says even with that, we can expect downed trees and power outages if the storm's track is closer to the coast. FEMA says it has supplies and teams in place ready to respond.
And we're on your side with what you can do. Make sure you have property and health insurance documents at the ready. Secure your property. Make sure all loose items are put away. Fill your gas tank. Power outages will close gas stations. Get enough cash to get you through this storm, simply because banks will close and ATMs might not have power.
Continuing our coverage of Hurricane Irene, we're on your side showing you how to get out of Hampton Roads if officials order an evacuation.
Also, get your hurricane supply kit together. We are on your side with how you can get everything you need for less than $20.
Look at your pantry and your water supply and decide if you need to go out and do a little shopping so that you'll have 3 days worth of food and water.
North Carolina Governor Beverly Perdue urges residents to get ready and get a hurricane kit together. People in Hampton Roads are doing the same. 10 on your side's Ann McNamara explains just how much this could cost you.
Nicole, I set out to make a kit a useful one for less than $20. The trick, though, finding new uses for things you already have in your own home. And before I tell you the total on that receipt, here's a look at what made it into the shopping cart. We're on a mission to buy a hurricane kit for less than 20 bucks. The test, the local dollar store. First stop, the most basic one, food. And water.
Oh, do y'all have any water that we can buy? And I'm like, yeah, we have gallon waters at our $1.
Now this is a good idea in case you don't have a lot of water. Of course you want to keep clean, so some hand sanitizer, and it's only $1.85, so this is probably a good buy. So we'll put that one in the cart. The Virginia Department of Emergency Management says to stock kits with radios, flashlights, and don't forget those batteries.
All the batteries that go to the big flashlights, we don't have anymore. We sold out.
And remember to use what you already have. Pack your toothbrush, your personal items, and medications. And use airtight bags like these to store important documents, cell phones, and laptops. Now, the moment of truth. $18.20.
They're just telling us that they're going to be prepared this time.
There it is, the proof, $18.20. But what about those people who don't have the money to make their own kits? Well, the Virginia Department of Emergency Management says they don't have any programs in place to assist those people. And a spokesperson tells 10 on Your Side, quote, it's everyone's responsibility to take care of their own home. So 10 on Your Side went one step further. We checked with all the cities in Hampton Roads, still waiting to hear from Suffolk, but the rest of them, not one has these kits for any low-income families. Ann McNamara, 10 on Your Side.
And you'll find a hurricane shopping list to help you prepare your disaster kit on WAVY.com. Just click on the Tracking Hurricane Irene section on the home page.
Big part of this story, the latest information. So Don Slater is working in the Weather Center. He's tracking Hurricane Irene. We'll get the latest on the storm's path straight ahead.
At VDOT headquarters in Suffolk, the trucks are sitting and waiting for Hurricane Irene. I'm Cheryl Tan. I'll tell you more about what VDOT is doing to make sure that you're ready to get out of town.
You're watching WAVY News 10 at 5 with Tom Shad, Nicole Libas, and Super Doppler 10 Chief Meteorologist Don Slater.
A couple of things to remember as we track Hurricane Irene. If you have to leave, make sure you take clothes for rainy weather, medications, those important documents, your ID, and of course food and water, plus that first aid kit. If mass evacuations are necessary, the already busy highways, particularly I-64, will be jammed. But depending on where you live, there could be another way to go. Cheryl Tan is on your side and tells us now it's the time to study a map.
I'm outside VDOT's Hampton Roads District Office in Suffolk. VDOT officials have been in and out of meetings all day long with state and local emergency officials planning for the worst. And when it comes to finding a way out of town, they say we should all be doing the same thing.
On this sunny summer day, it's the perfect time to look for these symbols.
This sign people can see on a lot of local roads. If they follow that evacuation route sign, they'll be led to the easiest, fastest way to evacuate their specific area.
Lauren Hansen with the Virginia Department of Transportation says in an evacuation situation, many drivers will instinctively steer their car to I-64, but I-64 isn't the only way out.
All the areas in red here are evacuation routes, and people need to know that they can get out of the area a lot of different ways other than 64.
An accident early Tuesday morning shut down the I-64 westbound tube of the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel for almost 5 hours.
Once one accident happens in one of our crossings, it really impacts all the other crossings in the area.
It's a good reminder to figure out ahead of time the alternatives.
You could use some of the city routes to get to the routes out of town. There's 460, 58, even Route 10 going through Smithfield and out that way in Hopewell. Those are all very well-used, well-signed evacuation routes that can help people get out of the area.
Take note of Route 17 over the James River Bridge, Route 60 and the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. The governor can also make the call to reverse traffic along I-64.
What that means is that people traveling on I-64 west out of the area from Virginia Beach and Norfolk would then be put on the once eastbound lanes through the HRBT and all the way up to Richmond, where they could connect with 295.
Another reason to plan ahead is if the storm produces sustained winds of at least 39 miles an hour, the Jamestown Scotland Ferry and the Midtown Tunnel could shut down. At 45 miles an hour, the same thing could happen to the Monitor Merrimack, James River Bridge, Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, and the Coleman Bridge.
You can find the Hurricane Ready Guide at these locations, and inside, valuable information for your evacuation planning. Just a reminder that there are 7 interstates and major roads that can help you get out of town. You can also find this entire guide online at WAVY.com. In Suffolk, Cheryl Tan, 10 on your side.
Lots of helpful information there.
That's right, and hopefully we won't have to have any mass evacuations here in Hampton Roads.
But the thing about it is that kind of information and those signs are precautionary in case we get a Category 3, Category 4 storm making a direct hit on our area, or even a Category 2. But it doesn't look like the Hampton Roads area is going to get a direct hit. So if you're not asked to evacuate, don't do so.
Stay right here.
Yeah, stay home.
It's good advice.
And take care of your property. Now, if you are asked to evacuate, do so. Do so immediately. Chances are, though, that the vast majority of the area will not be asked to evacuate, especially if the storm continues on its expected track. Super Dapper 10 Live, nothing much going on out there right now in terms of rainfall. A little bit of rain across the Outer Banks. Of course, all eyes are on Irene. And what is this storm going to do? Well, it's a major storm already. Category 3 storm. It's got 120 mile an hour winds moving to the northwest at 10 miles an hour. It's over the southeastern Bahamas. There's where it is Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. 125 mile an hour winds. Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock approaching the Outer Banks. Hatteras Island, 115 mile an hour winds. Now, we were talking earlier, Nicole and Tom and I just said, Hatteras is going to get popped. You are going to get popped by a hurricane, even if it's slightly offshore. You are certainly going to feel the effects of that. By Sunday afternoon, it's off the Jersey shoreline, still producing some wind into our area, but chances are it'll be more of a northwesterly wind, so I don't think we'll see a problem with tides by Sunday. Now, along the eastern shore, we could see some higher than normal tides going on along the Chesapeake Bay side of the eastern shore. There's where it is Monday. It's falling apart. We're going to go in closer and closer and closer. There's where it is Friday at 2 o'clock, 125. There's where it is by Saturday afternoon, approaching Hatteras with 115 mile an hour winds, moving through during the afternoon and overnight hours, and then it's off Jersey by Sunday afternoon, 100 mile an hour winds. And again, we take on a much closer view of things. Here it is, Saturday afternoon, approaching Cape Hatteras. Now, even if it does follow this track, but notice the forecast error here is huge, so it could be anywhere from on up into here all the way to well on out to sea. It's an admission of forecast error. We just don't know sometimes exactly where they're going to be. Now, if it goes 50 miles to the west, we got an entirely different story, especially for the Hampton Roads area. So we got to watch out for this one. But chances are it'll go somewhere near the middle of this forecast error, this cone, as we call it. Now, it's going to go offshore of Cape Hatteras. Worst part of the storm is well offshore, 115 mile an hour winds. However, we're very, very likely to see wind gusts to around 100 miles an hour on the good side of the storm, the west side of the storm. So Hatteras, you are going to get popped by this storm. Very, very likely. Now, we take a look at what's going on for the Hampton Roads area. There's where it is by Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, approaching the Outer Banks, moving just offshore, according to this, and then staying off the eastern shore coming up by Saturday night. Now, by Sunday morning, it'll likely be off New Jersey and producing again that northwesterly wind. We could see some bayside flooding along the eastern shore coming up by then. Now, the models, a little bit of hope there because most of the models have got it right on down the center of this, and again you can see it. So here's what we're expecting. We're looking at very, very strong winds, hurricane force winds here, tropical storm force winds all the way on up into especially the south side of the Hampton Roads area. And again, the time frame for all of this is mostly Saturday. We'll see it Saturday, especially during the afternoon and the nighttime hours, and we could also see torrential rains, especially right along the coastline during the day Saturday and into Saturday night.
This just into the WAVY newsroom. The status of some events this weekend in Virginia Beach in anticipation of Hurricane Irene. Beach Fam Fest is canceled Friday. Funk Fest canceled Saturday. Also, the fireworks on Saturday.
Nightly entertainment at 13th, 17th, 24th, 25th, 27th, and Beach Street canceled Saturday and Sunday. The East Coast Surfing Championship, though, is still on.
Also some cancellations in Norfolk. We'll have those for you coming up on WAVY News 10 at 5:30. What do you want to know about Hurricane Irene? People are asking a lot of questions on Facebook.
We are getting answers from the expert next.
WAVY TV 10 viewers are turning to Facebook and asking questions about Hurricane Irene.
And we're on your side getting the answers. Someone posted, seems Irene can't make up her mind. First she turns east, then she turns west, now east again.
So, Don, what factors determine the storm's track?
Well, number one, there's something called the Bermuda High that's out there, and we always talk about it, and it brings us southwesterly breezes and warm temperatures this time of year. That's the number one thing that affects the track, and that basically curls things on off the United States coastline. However, I want to take you into time with a wide view of our FUTURETRAK computer model, and you will note that by the end of this time frame, by Friday afternoon and into the evening hours, here's where the storm is, right on down into here off the southern Georgia coast and Florida coastline, and it's moving basically on up to the north and going right past Cape Hatteras. Now, one other thing to note, I'm going to run it again here for you, and that is the fact that there's a cold front off here, and you can see it, and then it starts disappearing. Well, what's going on with that is that it's tending to shunt the storm a little bit more northward to northeastward, so we're going to watch that very, very carefully coming up, especially by Saturday.
All right, Carrie wants to know what's expected for Hampton.
If you live on the peninsula, probably a little bit less, but still one to take seriously. A little bit less than what we're going to see for Virginia Beach, for example, or for the Outer Banks. Coastal areas look like they're really going to be affected on this one. Now, obviously, Hampton, you're on the bay and on the James River. So again, we'll want to watch out, especially for some heavy rain. I think you'll see some strong winds, but I don't think you're going to see the full force of the hurricane because you're a little bit farther away in Hampton. In fact, I'm going to show you something real quickly. I put together a map showing you some of the winds into the area. And you can see, again, 40 to 55 mile an hour winds for the south side up the eastern shore toward the Edenton area, points westward for there. But they start dropping off a little bit farther inland. And, of course, the strongest winds, hurricane force to 100 miles an hour, of course, along Hatteras Island.
All right. Keep sending your questions to us on Facebook.
Local mariners are preparing for Irene. Is your boat ready? 10 on Your Side has some tips for you.